Hey guys, Fox here, and today we're doing the 5th team review from the 2023 USFL College Draft. Today we're going to be doing the team that was the only team to beat the Birmingham Stallions during the entire year in the Houston Gamblers. The Houston Gamblers draft is naturally going to be one that is definitely going to be decent. The Gamblers had the biggest loss of talent in the entire USFL, as basically their entire defense said goodbye to the Gamblers, as well as having the biggest coaching downgrade among all teams, so they really do need to have a solid draft for either now or for the future. So without further ado, the first pick of their entire draft, for the third overall pick, was Chase Brice from App State, quarterback. He played at Clemson and Duke before spending his final 2 years at App State, where he set the single-season record with 3,300 yards passing and helped the Mountaineers upset Texas A&M, ranked 6th early in the 2022 season. Now, as for Brice, the important thing to note is that while, yes, he was at Duke and Clemson, he really did ride the bench at Clemson to the national championship in 2018, and then he didn't really play until 2020 with the Blue Devils. At Duke, he had a 2-9 record. He had just over 2,000 yards passing. He wasn't really a mobile quarterback and hasn't been ever. So, in terms of him, what's the big deal? I think the big thing to note about Brice is that there's a very, very real shot that he does go to the USFL this year. Again, this is a guy who's already in his mid-20s. He just turned 25 earlier this year, so he's not necessarily a young quarterback. And in terms of his, physicality standpoint, he's 6'3", 235, so he's not an overpowering type of force like a Cam Newton or a Josh Allen, or, your classic speedster type quarterback of like a Kyler Murray or Lamar. So there's a very real shot that he is able to come to the USFL very soon. Now, in terms of how he'll do there, I think that it's definitely going to be questionable. Even though he did have the upset, the bottom line is he overall was a losing quarterback in college, going 18-19 in his career, and he's never passed above 63 completion percentage, which you should be able to do. Though his last year at college, his TD interception ratio was a very solid one. It was like 27-6 passing. But overall, I think that when you look at him, I think he's probably going to be your decent type of quarterback. I think this is a lower risk type of move than, taking a Malik Cunningham or taking an Adrian Martinez who have a better shot at going to the NFL. But at the same time, I don't think the reward is nearly as high. I don't think that Brice is going to be what Cunningham or Martinez could be in the USFL. So I think it's a safe pick, especially since they don't have Clayton Thorson. Their best quarterback is Kenji Bahar, and I do think Brice would be an upgrade over him. So I think that that's probably their game plan. They're not really doing the best of quarterbacks available, but they're getting one that has a legit shot to come to them. Now, in the second round, they picked defensive back Justin Ford. Again, one of the guys that left was Will Likely. So they need to replace him somehow, and in terms of Justin Ford, he led college football with 9 interceptions in his first season at Montana after transferring from Louisville back in 21. He was a unanimous first-team All-American in the FCS and was named Big Sky Conference Newcomer of the Year. Again, a very solid overall type of pick. You're not getting the, most, I guess we'll say, acclaimed of player. As I've said, there's a lot of FCS guys who get picked since those guys are the borderline type of players. So I think there's a shot naturally that he could come within the next couple of years to them. If he does, he should be a very solid addition to replace Will Likely, who they lost. Because that is naturally one of the biggest losses they had was Will Likely. So if they are able to replace him, would be very good. Especially since this guy's 3 inches taller than Likely and is like 40 pounds bigger. Or in fact, I think he's even more than 3 inches. He's a much bigger guy than Will Likely. So it'd be really nice to see that they're actually able to get him into the team very soon. Now, as for their third round pick ended up being Joseph Fisher, offensive guard from Shepherd. He was recently participated in the NFL PA Bowl and Senior Bowl showcases. He has earned hype as a potential draft pick after a successful college career on the Rams O-line. As always, offensive linemen, always very, very solid picks. If they come to the league, they're going to be a huge help to you. There's not much to be said. You're getting an offensive lineman. It's a very solid pick, very smart, safe, good pick. Fourth round, Scott Matlock from Boise State, defensive tackle. There he started 13 games in 2022. He recorded a team-high 7 quarterback hurries and led all Broncos defensive linemen with 49 tackles, including 6 TFLs and 2.5 sacks. He was named All-Mountain West second team both in 21 and 22, and made the Benerick and Outland Award watch list in 2022. He started all of Boise State's games in 2021 and 2020 as well. Again, like I said, they lost a lot of players. They lost Chris Odom, who's at least currently still in the NFL, so they lost him. They lost other guys, Reggie Northrup and I believe Donald Payne both left. So their team lost a lot of guys. Getting picks on the defense is a very solid addition. This is probably the only team, and I mean this, in the entire league where if they don't go offensive line heavy, I would have said it's fine because they have so many flaws in defense now. So what about their 5th round pick? Well, the 5th round pick was another defensive tackle. This time it was Jeffrey Johnson from Oklahoma. He played all 12 Sooner games last year. He had 18 tackles, 2.5 TFLs, and a QB hurry. He had 154 total tackles and 8 sacks, appearing in 61 games over 5 seasons for Oklahoma. Again, this is a guy from a big school, isn't, the most touted type of players, isn't, your stat heavy, oh my god, this guy got a ton of sacks or a huge guy. Solid chance he comes to the league in the next couple of years. And again, you need guys to help reinforce that defense. That was the only reason the team was really in games last year. I think this is a very solid pick overall. I definitely do like this. Then their 6th round pick was another defensive back, this time from Alabama State, and Keenan Isaac. He returned after an injury short in 2021 to appear in 11 games for them last year, where he had 39 total tackles, 2 interceptions, and 8 pass breakups. Again, needing to get players to try and replace guys who left is a huge deal. When you get multiple players who, are from, let me rephrase that. When you're getting players that, you need to replace positions in this league, it's about getting guys who you think will come back. So it's always a very good thing to have them come back and all that kind of stuff. So I think this is definitely a very solid overall pick by them. I do like this pick a lot. Again, they need to try and replace Will Likely, and as long as one of these guys comes to them in a year or two, that'll be very good for them. Then Alex Jensen from South Dakota was their 7th round pick, offensive tackle. He played 8 games for them. He was 2nd team All-Missouri Valley Conference in 2021, and he started all 12 games of left tackle for him. Again, you're getting guys that you really do need. Very, very solid picks as well. Getting those type of players is always going to be a huge help. So I think this is a very overall solid pick. Again, they needed players like this, and this is definitely what you want. Offensive linemen, always smart picks. Then in the 8th round, they picked Brady Russell from Colorado, tight end. Russell recorded 78 receptions for 799 yards and 3 touchdowns across 5 seasons at Colorado. He was named the Buffalo Heart Award winner in 22 for his contributions to the team, especially in Buffalo's lone win over California. Yeah, the team was not the best, we'll call it. We'll say that they were below average when really this team was really bad. He was probably one of the few bright spots on the team. And in terms of getting him, I think the big thing to note is that this is one of the very few tight ends that ended up getting drafted. There weren't this obscene amount of tight ends who ended up getting drafted. So I think that overall, when you look at this, you definitely think this is a very solid pick. So, because when you look at the draft, I think overall there was maybe just 3 that were taken. So there weren't really that many tight ends that ended up getting, selected. So they're getting a very solid type of player. So I think that overall, though, when you're looking at this, the Gamblers were one of the teams that didn't have your sort of, oh yeah, I know that tight end type of guy. They didn't have no Bug Howard. They didn't have no Sal Cannella. So I think this is a very solid pick to add to the team. In the 9th round was Jason Taylor, II from Oklahoma State, safety. He was a key part of Oklahoma State's defense for the past 3 years. He had 159 total tackles and 8 picks, including several few highlight plays. His first season as a starter in 2021, he was a crucial role in helping them get to the Big 12 championship game. So Oklahoma State naturally the past couple of years has been one of those teams that has been a dark horse. Well, not really a dark horse, but just a sleeper pick to win the national championship, though especially last year they really bombed it near the end. But when you're getting someone from a legitimately good school like that is always a very solid play. I think this is definitely a very solid addition as to try and, shore up that back end. As, this team's only real good safety last year that people remembered was Micah Abernathy, and that was really just because of his last second pick he had. So I think this is a very solid addition, especially since Abernathy still also isn't on the team right now. So, they also need to replace him. They need to replace a lot in this team, really. The last pick was Colby Reeder, Iowa State linebacker, round 10. He made just 8 starts in 2022 due to injury, but still finished 7th on the Iowa State with 38 tackles, including 4.5 TFLs and 1.5 sacks this season for the Cyclones after transferring from Delaware, where he's an all-conference player despite missing 3 games. Again, a very solid pick, getting a linebacker, which is what you really need. This team really, really needed to get some linebackers, especially since they lost, a couple really good players that they had. So I think this is definitely a very, very solid addition to hopefully try and get him to come to the team. To help him be a huge help on this team would be a really good thing for them. So now we get to the real question. How did they do? Well, like I said, this team had the weirdest need of all teams. Unlike every other team, and I mean literally every other team where I'd say go offensive line heavy, this team had so many losses on defense. You're talking 2 great linebackers, an unbelievable pass rusher, multiple good defensive backs, all gone. They needed to replace them. And if I'm being honest, I think that the only thing I really wasn't a huge fan of is, honestly, they didn't address linebackers much. The 2 linebackers they had, Northrup and Payne, were a huge reason they were in games. Yes, also Chris Ohm, I believe he was the best player last year, even better than Turpin. But the fact is, they only drafted 1 linebacker, which I think was overall a poor decision. In terms of the Chase Bryce pick, however, I would make a case that it's both one of their best and worst picks. It's one of their worst picks in the fact that that could have been used on a linebacker. But it's a great pick, as I think that he would be a massive upgrade over who they have right now. So, in terms of what I think that their draft was, I think that there's not really much I can complain about, but I don't think they nailed it the way they should have. I like their tight end selection, but I'm not a fan of them only picking 1 linebacker. I think that overall, this is as close to an A+ as you can get without being an A+. So I'm going to give the Houston Gamblers an A. This has been ZombFox. If you enjoy all this content, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. We still have 3 more teams to do. I don't know which team to do next, but we still have the Breakers, Showboats, and the Panthers to do. So make sure you're notified for when those videos come out. And as always, have a great night.